that's why I love working in this space of like helping people in their childbearing years, because for so many people, that is the thing, like being pregnant or going through infertility or these things, like things around childbearing are the thing that get people thinking like, well, wait, what is the best thing for my child? What is the best thing for me while I'm growing my child or feeding my child? Um, so it's a really good place to rapidly make a lot of positive changes and see real-time benefits. Sarah and Mike here. We are launching into a live video about our story of basically going from kind of the ordinary conventional life to the more natural parenting, natural lifestyle. We were just kind of raised in kind of the normal culture. You guys had a little more access to like fresh garden produce and stuff. I lived overseas in high rises and stuff. Like we had a garden whenever we could, but we weren't really eating like fresh garden grown veggies. So of course we didn't used to be millennials, but then they changed everything and now we're millennials. Um,
No,
I'm still a little resentful.
I recently saw a reel that explained that we're not millennials because if we were born between the animated Lord of the Rings and the live action Lord of the Rings,
We were.
then we're considered the Hobbit generation.
Oh, I like that better.
Because the reason why is because we were promised riches and wealth, and instead all we received was ruin and desolation.
Well, on that note,
On that note.
okay. Anyway, what I was trying to say is those of us kind of raised in that millennial sort of generation, like that was when convenience foods were like
At their peak.
at their peak. Yeah, it was like super normal. No one was talking about how unhealthy they were, like to an extent. Like of course there was the concept of like, oh, you'll eventually get a tummy ache if you eat too much candy, but there was never talk about like if you eat candy with any regularity, you're eventually going to develop some disease and have to deal with it in your 20s when your body decides it's 83 years old. So,
Like that recent study that came out that's like it was about common candies, so Nerds and Jolly Ranchers, I
oh
think
yeah.
were the ones that they were referencing, and it's like if your child eats more than 9 Jolly Ranchers in a year, they're exposed to like 700% of the allowable exposure to arsenic or something like
Yeah,
that.
there's you can look it
And
up. It's not pretty.
yeah, it's just like, and that was our generation.
Yeah.
Hey buddy, we would go trick or treating on Halloween night and come back with our haul. I'd stuff 15 Jolly Ranchers down my gullet in one night.
Mhm.
So, I was giving myself two times 700%. So anyway,
I from an early age decided that I wanted to be a chemical engineer. I really liked understanding how things worked at like a cellular chemical level. I thought it was so cool that you could transform things, right? My father worked for a major consumer products company, and we were always like there were these like big events where families could go and they would like rent out the major amusement park in the area for the day, and it was like, oh, what a wonderful company. Yes, we should all work for them someday. It'll be great. So that was kind of the path I was on, and I just followed that path. So let's see, finish college and start working full time as a chemical engineer. And first off, I learned really quick that my old sleep habits were no good.
that's an understatement.
And like, mind you, I was not out partying. Like, I don't party. That's
Nope.
not my thing. Anyway, so quickly learned that you do actually have to sleep when you're working full time, because you can't just like sleep through your classes and stuff, which also, kind of made it hard to actually do as well on tests as I wanted to, but that's it anyway. And so I had to learn really quickly how to start better taking care of myself. And there was actually some pretty healthy food in the cafeteria, so I was like, I was getting better, and I it's funny, all my college roommates said I was the most domestic of them because I would like pull fish sticks out of the freezer and cook rice. I think it was mostly the cooking rice that they were like, "You're so domestic." And then I would pull like frozen mixed veggies out of the freezer and like I would just warm that up and that was my meal. Lots of microwave use, of course, because and so I like I kind of thought I was doing okay. So I'm working a little bit as a chemical engineer. I'm living completely by myself. Well, no, that's not true. I did have some roommates. But anyway, I was learning how to like take total responsibility for my health so that I could actually function and do a good job because I always wanted to do a good job. And started learning the importance of sleep. It's still my greatest struggle, I have to admit. I'm working on it. I was a mediocre athlete in high school. I went to really tiny schools and I just kind of did everything because I loved everything and I loved moving my body and I loved dancing and everything. Anyway, loved moving my body, but I started having these random problems. Like I was shoveling heavy, wet Boston snow and started having spasms down my back. I woke up one morning and I couldn't turn my head, and it was just like my body was suddenly falling apart, and I had no idea what was going on. Um, and so that's when I started seeing like massage therapists, a chiropractor, structural integration therapy, and started working on some things there. We got married, good times, and when we got married and we were living together for the first time, we realized quickly that something we have in common is kind of an addictive mentality around sweet things. Like,
I would go to the CVS after Halloween or Easter to go buy like discount candy, and then we'd bring it home, and over the course of like 2.5 or 3 days, we'd eat
it
it
was
all.
gone. It was gone. If either of us brought something like junk foodie
Yeah,
into our apartment,
it
we
was
would
gone.
just eat it so fast. Like every 5 seconds, we would need to go back for more. And so we both realized, like, oh, if there's something that we shouldn't be eating, we just have to not buy it and not even have it in the house. Like
Yeah,
there is no moderation on this for us.
yeah.
We just have to not have it available. And I think that we have, over time, strengthened that muscle a little bit that we can like walk past some things. Well, a lot of things, when you're shopping. And so that does eventually get better. For anyone who feels like they're in the same place and like it's never going to get better, that does shift. Anyway, so we're starting to make better choices, reducing the sugar in our lives a little bit. And now we are looking forward to getting pregnant and starting our family. And so
I was at the time working part-time on a food truck and didn't really have a full-time schedule during the week. So I went ahead and purchased us a Netflix subscription so I could fill the time washing dishes, cleaning the apartment, doing other things with Netflix things going in the background. And I quickly discovered the documentary category. And within that documentary category was a movie called The Business of Being Born. So I thought that might be interesting. I started watching it and thought, this is something that Sarah is probably going to be interested in also watching. So when she got home, I was like, hey, let's watch this documentary together. And what we were exposed to was basically how over decades of time, the birth of a child into the world went from being viewed as like a miracle and what a wonderful thing in the hospital's eyes to dollar signs.
Mhm.
And the more services that could be given to a woman in labor, the more money the hospital makes. That didn't really sit well with either of us.
Mhm.
And it was this moment where both of us assumed the right thing to do is to go to the hospital and hear all of the nurses and doctors' recommendations and just say yes to them and go along with whatever they
Because
say
they know
what we do
best.
because they know best, We went from that attitude to after watching this documentary saying, no, this is something that we should have control of in our own lives. We should get to make these decisions. Sarah should get to decide decisions for her body when labor is happening. And honestly, that movie was kind of the gateway drug to us then questioning so many other
It's so
things.
true. It's so true. And I love, and that's why I love working in this space of like helping people in their childbearing years, because for so many people, that is the thing, like being pregnant or going through infertility or these things, like things around childbearing are the thing that get people thinking like, well, wait, what is the best thing for my child? What is the best thing for me while I'm growing my child or feeding my child? Um, so it's a really good place to rapidly make a lot of positive changes and see real-time benefits. I had migraines for years, like 3 or 4 a year, and they were awful, and I took medicine. And every year or so, we'd go see our GP or whoever, wherever we were living, and they would be like, "Oh, this one works better," you know? So I had like it's actually called heroic medicine, in the sense of like it causes a big effect really fast. And so like Imitrex and like other kind of fast acting pain relief, migraine relief, that's kind of the stuff I was taking. And so, but until it kicked in, my mom would massage my head and rub my back. And it was like, I mean, I thought I was dying, right? And so my, the identity that I believed about myself was that I had a low pain tolerance, that I could not handle pain because every time I had a migraine, I thought I was going to die. Well, it turns out actually it's just because migraines are awful. But otherwise, I actually have a pretty good pain tolerance. But at the time, I just thought, like, well, there's no way I can give birth to a baby without pain relief. That's stupid. I have a low pain tolerance, right? But then watching this documentary opened my eyes to, wait a second, like our bodies are actually designed to do certain things, and these interventions that are offered or required at the institutions, they can actually cause a cascade of effects that can lead to really unpleasant experiences and short-term and long-term ill effects for mother and baby. And so I was like, all right, I need to do some research. So we go through that pregnancy. It was fine. I actually like I had sinus infections all the time, and I just like took the normal stuff. And at one point, my boss um was like, "You're sick a lot. Like, are you okay? Like, do you need something?" And I'm like, "I thought this was normal. I thought it was normal to have sinus infections all the time." Just like I thought it was normal to have loose bowels all the time because I just always did. So pregnancy continues, things are generally fine. We do move states and to be closer to family and not in the big city. And I started to also realize around that time that I was pretty sensitive to fragrance, that would also trigger migraines. And of course, working for a major consumer products company, I was around fragrance a lot. Um, so that we started kind of changing out. And then our baby was born and she couldn't nurse. We did have a natural birth in the hospital, unmedicated. I know some people say like, well, you can't have a natural birth in the hospital because the hospital's not natural. Like I get it. All right. It's just kind of what flows off the time. So it was an unmedicated birth in the hospital, in the place we were living. That was really like the only thing that was legal. Like we would have had to cross state lines to like do a home birth, and then it wouldn't be in our home. So why? Anyways, so now we have this baby. We're sitting in the hospital. She's so cute. She's beautiful. Here's her name, and she's not nursing. And the as soon as the nurse realized she wasn't able to latch, she handed us a bottle of formula, and I was like, "Why? Like, why? Like I need more of an explanation because as an engineer, I'm all about root cause and problem solving. Like, let's figure this out. I need to know why this is happening so I can figure out how to fix it." And they didn't have any answers. They just said, "Here's some formula." And I'm like, what the? And we were getting more and more stressed out, which of course does not aid latching
Yeah.
and everything. And it was awful. And, well-meaning people came in and were like, oh, she doesn't have a tongue tie. Like, I think it's fine. And one person finally came in and said, okay, so you can pump and then we can syringe feed your baby
I was using my pinky upside
while having
down.
her suck on a finger. Right. And so then we were doing that, which was completely exhausting. And we were doing that for another 3 days after we left the hospital. But it was something. And we finally had one nurse come in that I honestly think she was an actual angel. Because she was the first nurse that came in and she just like stood at the door of my hospital room and just watched for a few minutes. And she had like the calmest energy I have ever experienced. And she just, then she came in and was just like, I'm here to help and I have a lot of experience helping people breastfeed and like let's help you. And she put her hands on my back because I was having like serious back spasms by now from the stress and from pushing wrong. And she just helped calm me down and gave me the confidence that I could go home and we were going to figure this out. And so we eventually, I'm going to shorten the story now, but we eventually did find a lactation consultant who acknowledged that our baby did in fact have a tongue tie and a lip tie, even though at least 4 pediatricians before that person said she didn't. So then we got into that whole rabbit hole of how much people really know or don't know about tongue tie, lip tie, especially posterior tongue tie, lip tie. Um, but long story short, the person who eventually helped us uh, was was linked into kind of the more holistic world. And so she was bringing in some homeopathy things for the baby and some herbal things for the baby and for me. And that was like my first exposure to these things. And I was like, oh wow, like this stuff works really well. And so we got through that. She was able to nurse. She went on to nurse for like 2.5 years. Like it was great. Totally worth it. Totally worth the drama, but
It was a lot of drama in
it
the
was
moment.
a lot, right? I probably still have some trauma I need to work through from it. But okay, so now we're just doing new babyhood. And now since I've been introduced to things like homeopathy and herbs, like I'm starting to kind of look into them a little bit. So like when our baby had her first cold, I was like, okay, like what's like the natural stuff I can give her? And so I was more focused on her than myself, but we kind of just kept going. And so we just kept learning more and more. Do you want to say anything else about that before I move on? I think we've done all
No,
that.
no.
Okay. So now here comes the kicker because our plan at that point was that I would go back to work after 3.5 months and Mike would stay home with her. And I like super pumped myself up to be okay with it. I was like, it's gonna be great. She's with her daddy. Like, she's at least not in daycare, she'll be safe. She'll have that like bond with him. It'll be good, and I can do this. And so I pumped and worked full time for a year. Learned how to pump while driving. Um, but quickly realized like I think Mike was more in tune before I was because I was just like pulling myself up by my bootstraps every day to be like, this is fine. I'm making this be okay. But you were not happy.
I wasn't happy because you weren't happy.
But I didn't even know I wasn't happy.
I mean, in fairness, I'm not in your body. I don't know if you were happy or not, but it
Mm.
seemed like every day was you coming home and like there were just a lot of comments, a lot of expressed frustration, and I'm just like, why are you doing this if you're so frustrated every day?
So I was becoming more and more jaded with the culture and everything. Mike was really lonely because if you're the only stay-at-home dad, in your community, like it was extremely uncommon in our community and our faith community. Is like he's not going to go to a play date with a bunch of other women. And I don't know that I wanted him to do that either, right? Like, um, and so it just was not working, and I got really depressed. And I did not even realize that I was depressed because of how depression was talked about and framed my entire life up to that point. I really didn't understand what it was and what what to do about it. Other than like at that time, depression medication was like super taboo. Like we don't talk about it. It's like a failure if you use it. So I'm getting more and more depressed. And one day I was work. Okay, one day I was working at a different location at a like a contractor or something. And at that place, I had they like let me lock myself in a dark, empty conference room to pump for my baby. And it was just like, this is so stupid. I miss her all day. So I was in a car accident, and basically, any of the issues that had started to pop up, these musculoskeletal issues, these headaches, um, digestive troubles that were really becoming like noticeably a problem for me that I needed to finally deal with, they got so much worse and frequent. And so this started me on a journey of doing a ton of research on how to heal from this and seeing new sorts of practitioners. Saw a chiropractor, I did acupuncture and class for laser therapy, of course, massage. And then I started having panic attacks. I mean, it like, and now I had not only depression, but also anxiety and panic attacks and constant headaches. Like it was bad. But at first I was like, it's okay. I'm fine. I'll take a muscle relaxant and Advil and just go back to work. Like it's fine. Um, and now like that really makes me cringe. But within a couple weeks, like my body hit a wall. And by then I was getting therapy, for better or for worse. Honestly, it wasn't very good therapy. It was covered by my insurance, but it wasn't very good therapy. So we started all of that work, and eventually I realized that I really needed to take time off work because the stress of work wasn't letting me heal. And so I did that. And then I really went on a deep dive into the research because now I'm home. My husband was starting to, yeah, Mike was starting to learn web development because he decided that he wanted to get a job in web development. So he was self-studying that. Because his college degree didn't have anything to do with that. But so while he was doing that, now I'm home with my toddler, um, trying to figure out how to get my body to stop freaking out in a way that like actually solves the problem. I was done with band-aids and tricks. I wanted to actually solve the problem and get to the root cause and understand it. Because, like I said, the things that I was now experiencing after the accident were problems that I already had, and now they're just 10 times worse, or even more than that. Which means the accident was not the cause, and there's a deeper cause that I need to figure out. And so I checked out so many books from the library. I mean, I had stacks of books like on migraines and musculoskeletal stuff, anxiety, depression. Like I was doing all the research, and then I was able to get an appointment with a neurologist um, for the things that like just weren't quite getting better quickly enough for me. Or maybe it was some requirement with when I went on leave, like I had to go see a medical provider and like send them a receipt.
Probably.
That sounds familiar. Anyway, I went to see a neurologist, and I'd never seen a neurologist before, even though I'd had neurological problems. So I was like, cool, he's gonna have some answer for me. Like, I'm gonna go talk to an expert. This is gonna be great. We're gonna like jam out on the details. Like, this is gonna be awesome. So I go to this neurologist, and I just am able to tell him like 60 seconds worth of what I'm experiencing and my medical history. And he said, well, there's like these three different medications, and here's like the reasons you might want to consider each one. And I was like, but why? Like, I want to know how they work. I want to know what they do before I put that in my body. And mind you, like at this point, we weren't even that natural yet.
Yeah.
We were still doing a lot of like the normal things. But there was just because of that engineer mindset, I was like, well, I want I want to actually heal this. How does that heal me? Oh, we don't actually know how it works. Oh, good. So I'm going to change my brain with something that you don't know how it works.
You just know that it's a side effect of a drug that was under development for another thing.
Probably. Yeah, that's another thing. Anyway, and so I just didn't have a good feeling about it. And so I think the first, like, he offered me a medication for like one of the things, like, let's call it migraines. It's like, oh, well, you can take this every day and it'll prevent migraines. And I'm like, well, it would be really nice not to have any migraines ever again. I was like, well, but what about the anxiety? Oh, this fixes that too. Why? What about the depression? This fixes that too. Why? How? Like, explain it to me. And of course, then by then he was out of the room. So I left with the prescription and I never filled it. Because it just didn't feel right. And so I am, you know, I talked about how it's thanks to my engineer mindset, but I like to believe that the Holy Spirit was involved as well. Um, because this is not like for every logical reason, looking at how I grew up, I should have just taken the prescription. My life would have been great, right? But it just did not feel right. And then I went to a psychiatrist next. I think that was like 2 months later, because it takes forever to get appointments with people in the hard medical field. I say hard medical, meaning the ones that insurance likes, the approved, established providers. Um, so I was scheduled to like go back to work in a couple weeks after that by the time I got the appointment. And I went in for that appointment because I was not ready to go. I did not feel like it was going to be a good idea. And I went and talked to this psychiatrist and I was like, well, I've never talked to one of you before, but I'm having these struggles and I, what have you got for me? What can you teach me? Like I wanted to learn from all the best teachers. And turns out, well, they're not teachers, they are Pez dispensers of pharma drugs. Like, um, at least the ones I met. There are good ones out there, and I appreciate you. Thank you for being you. I do think most people are trying to do the best they can with what they have, and it's just all filtered by our beliefs and our experiences and whatnot. Um, anyway, so I go to the psychiatrist and I'm like, well, what do you think I should do? And she's like, well, it sounds like your work stress is like that does not feel safe for you to go back to work. And I was like, yeah, I'd actually really prefer just to never go back there and just quit that job. And she said, well, my professional opinion is that if you quit your job, you don't need medication. All right, let's quit my job. So all along this way, we've been adjusting our diet. We start learning about the Weston A. Price diet, and we start doing all the things, the fermented things, the soaked everything, the bone broth, the raw milk, the raw cheese, the make your own
Yep.
everything. And there were a lot of things that improved for us on that diet, and I am really grateful for it. I also was starting to look at for the musculoskeletal stuff, like, okay, what are the best modalities out there with my, like, what's going to be a good fit for me? And one of the things that I found was Alexander Technique and Feldenkrais. And I was looking at both of them and practitioners in my area. And for whatever reason, I felt better about starting with the Alexander Technique. I think they're really both great modalities. And I have had some Feldenkrais work as well. So I think they're both really good. But so I start learning Alexander technique and bonus points. My teacher was a world-class violinist, and I hadn't been able to play violin since my accident because it was just so painful. And so while learning techniques for my whole body to feel better, instead of like literally walking around tensing myself in one posture because it's the only posture that I did not feel pain in, now I could learn how to relax and release the tension in my body with just My little brain. All right, around this time, Mike was doing a lot of reading of
Wendellberry.
Wendell Berry, and we started looking for how can we have a farm someday? Do you want to go into that?
Yeah, sure. So,
Okay.
like, I don't know, 5 or 8 weeks after we were married, Sarah comes home. Mind you, this is rewinding way back, but like 5 or 8 weeks after we get married, I found documentaries that were like all around regenerative ag and whatnot. And Sarah comes home one day and I basically say, I think I want to be a farmer someday. And she was like, oh boy.
Do you remember what I said?
Um, yeah, what did she say?
Well, I actually don't know if I said this out loud, but in my mind, I said, "That's cute."
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess I will be working full time for the rest of my life. Like that was how I felt about that.
Yeah. Anyway, so farming was something that was of interest to me, mainly because when I grew up on just a third of an acre, but my dad was a very avid gardener and he basically turned anything into productive ground that he could. And so I grew up with fresh fruits, fresh vegetables. It's just part of my upbringing. And when I learned about regenerative agriculture, I thought, this is amazing. This is so cool. This this feels like the right thing to do. And so then fast forward to around this time, when Sarah was doing the Weston A. Price stuff and Alexander Technique stuff for the family, uh, she was kind of coming on board with this idea of like, yeah, maybe we do want to get some land that allows us to grow our own food and whatnot.
Live a slower,
Yeah,
calmer, together life.
yeah,
That's what I wanted.
exactly. And so, I actually spent some time when we were living back east. I spent some time working on a farm, got the practical experience under my hands, and it was like, yeah, this feels really good. This feels really rewarding. This is something that we should pursue. Um, and got to have that practical hands-on experience when we were living back east. What was the specific question I was answering?
Yeah. Oh, well, no, I think that was really good. So at that time, our friends that he was part-time working for on their farm, it was like a Joel Salatin-esque farm. Now his name is very well known, so you can easily
Name drop that.
you can search him up. And this was really cool. But that farmer friend was actually hired to go be a farmer in this farming community where the idea was like he was the central farmer. We all had homes around the farm and we would come and interact with the farm, volunteer at the farm, etc. And so we almost bought into that project.
Yeah.
It was, of course, extremely expensive. But that turns out was not the right opportunity for us. And meantime, different segments of our families on both sides were moving to Utah. And we really didn't want to raise our kids without cousins and grandparents and aunts and uncles. And so we're like, well, should we move to Utah too? And unfortunately, God told us yes, because I never wanted to live in Utah.
Yeah.
Um, but here we are. And so it's been a really interesting experience. So around this time, right as we were moving, our second child was about to turn 1. And he was the first child that I had enough space in my life to start questioning all of the assumed procedures, we'll say, the assumed scheduled procedures. And uh, I liked our pediatrician, but when I started asking for more information on things before they were injected into my child, she would just hand me a laminated single page sort of quick note document on it and walk out of the room and be like, all right, the nurse will be back in a minute to administer it. And I'm reading through it and I'm like, wait, I have some questions. Like, these are not great side effects. Like, can we talk about this a little more? Like, is this really necessary? Especially because they were introducing injections for things that I had had as a child and were not a big deal. Um, so I was like, is this really necessary? Like, why would I risk this for something that they can get through just fine? And of course, it comes down to like convenience and not missing school and whatever. Well, convenience has led to the deterioration of the health of the masses, in my opinion. I mean, it's a huge, huge root cause there. Um, but anyway, so this was when I really first started allowing myself to question, is this really a good thing? Should we really do this? And this is the first time I actually prayed about it because before, like for our first child, it was just like, well, this is just what you do. Of course, these things were definitely inspired by God, and we should just the medical professionals know best, and let's just do it. But for my second child, it was the first time I was like, wait, I'm actually going to pray about this. And I could not get an answer, and I was so frustrated because more and more people in my life, because we were inching more and more into this holistic world and had more and more holistic friends, and they started saying like you should really look into this, and I was like, oh no, I have to actually like look into this. But I didn't want to. I did not want to have to change my beliefs on those things. It was so much more convenient to be like, well, if I just trust the medical people and just let them do this to my baby, you know, they'll definitely have a better life, it'll be great, they'll be protected from all these things, and then learning that that is like so far from the truth. Um but I could not get an answer. But I felt, at least I didn't get an answer that I understood. But the last one that I took him in for, um oh, somebody's not happy. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was so conflicted in my heart. I was just like, why don't I have an answer? Like, I need to know if this is okay or not. I just don't know. And I let them do it anyway. But then after that experience, I was like, no, I'm not doing this until I really get an answer that I feel good about. And the answer that I got then was wait. And so I started, and then it was like, well, we're gonna move to Utah before he turns 1. So it's not like he has to have this right now. Thanks for the hearts. That's sweet. And feel free to comment or ask questions. That's great. So I'm waiting, and it's like, okay, we'll move to Utah. Guess what? In Utah, there are naturopathic doctors, and that's a legal, allowed thing. So I'm going to go talk to one of them, and they're going to give me answers that actually make sense. That sounds great, and that they'll feel good in my heart. So we've got both of them going, and I feel good about this, right? And so I waited, and we moved to Utah, and I found an ND pediatrician, and I was so excited. And I still love her. I need to see where she's at now. But she was great. And she's like the same age as me, which was kind of weird, but um, maybe even younger. It was hard to tell. So I asked her very direct questions like, what are the pros and cons here? What really are my options? I want true informed consent. And she had actually interned at the CDC, which I don't know. I don't know. It's kind of weird. And she like would not answer me directly. She would not answer me directly, but she printed out something from another naturopath somewhere else who gave me some answers that I finally felt like, oh my goodness, these are the details I needed. Um, and then when I prayed about it, it was very clear, like, this is not needed. And so then it became my mission of, okay, if I'm not going to protect my children with these things, I need to know how to prevent and or manage, help heal quickly these things if and or when they have these illnesses. And so that was my big research thing for a while. And the more I got into it, it was like, oh, these like there's actually very simple things that we can use to support our bodies through each of these things. And actually, these illnesses are beneficial long term. Things like, if your body is working properly and you support a fever properly, high fevers actually help clean cancer cells out of the body, which we all have because it's a natural byproduct of living, but especially in the very toxic environments and foods we all are exposed to and eat now. Um, there's more, right? Anyway, so I'm just finding out more and more of what I believe was God's real design for um, helping children develop real health and helping myself develop real health. And I just got more and more confident. It's like, no, all like there's an answer for all of these things. Um, and so that was really truly an answer to prayer, and I was so grateful for that. Um, so at this point, I was starting to learn more about herbs and essential oils were all the rage, and learned more about homeopathy and tried that for a while. Found that it didn't really help me. I had one child and another family member that actually responded pretty well to it, but for me, it just wasn't working. And I was still trying to find answers for the migraines, and I started to find some, especially during pregnancy. What do I do? Because I don't want these drugs to get my kids, so the pain relievers and whatever, um, while I'm incubating them, while I'm growing them. Okay, anyway, so a lot of the herbal information that I found was like really watered down, and there was a lot of fear mongering. And but what I found, I tried, and none of it was strong enough for the migraines. And especially during pregnancy, it was like everything's off the table, right? Everything's gonna kill your baby, and it was just like, oh my gosh, like there's got to be something better out there. And so I was like, all right, well, I guess I just need to like go to a herb school online or something. And all the ones that I found were like they were just kind of on the edge of like earth nature worship kind of stuff, and that was not where I was at. So it was on the back of my mind. Like I would really like to learn herbs, but I haven't found the right one yet. um started We started playing around with Wim Hof breathing and cold water therapy. That was really fun. I do have a video series on that and ways to do it gently. If you have any questions about that, let me know. But that is Smash Your Stress. If you search Smash Your Stress on herbalembrace.com, you'll find it. By the way, we are getting up the herbpoweredpregnancy.com website. The domain is purchased, the platform is selected, and it's happening. It's just going to take us a hot minute to get it all set up. So eventually that'll be on there too. Anyway, so we're making progress. We're making progress, a lot of progress. I got to the point where I could get through a migraine without pharmaceuticals. It wasn't pretty, but I could do it. And I really didn't want to take anything while I was pregnant. Um, and um, and then we were pregnant. And so for my third baby, like the day I got pregnant, I was depressed. Like that postpartum depression that I had before started in pregnancy. And I was it was not good. I was just dragging, and so I, kept researching some more, and by now we're doing like echinacea syrups and elderberry syrups, starting to teach some classes, doing all the bone broth and all that kind of stuff that's really popular now. But still, like I was just really struggling. And then of course the entire world shut down, and that only got worse. So we hit a point where we had had this goal for a while that we would find some land and be able to have a family farm. Um, and peekaboo, unexpected visitors.
She's gonna keep doing this again.
She was gonna keep doing this, and we are losing light.
Yeah.
If you could turn on the lights. Ooh, and different colors. Sorry.
Too loud. Too loud. Come here.
Okay. So a opportunity came our way to um for lack of a better word, purchase land in a community of other people wanting to homestead and farm. Pref hopefully mostly organically. Um, and and we prayed about it a lot and we're like, yeah, like this is a lot better than just doing it on our own because our kids will have friends and I'll have friends and he'll have friends. Like this is what we should do. We'll need support, because I really don't feel like motherhood and fatherhood and raising small children and older children is meant to be done in isolation. Like it's meant to be done
as a family.
as a family and in extended groups of families and friends and community members. Like, um, this will be fun on when we put this on the podcast later because we're starting a podcast. Woohoo! To have the random door opening and closing noises in the background. It just adds to our charm, right? Our charming. Okay, so we have bought into, this farming community and we are we already knew about was it called regenerative agriculture at that point? Okay, we already knew about ag. But then we started hearing about permaculture, and that was like even better. I mean, it was like regen ag on steroids. Like it was so good, except not steroids because they're bad for you. But um, anyway, so it's really exciting. And there was a permaculture design course happening a couple hours from us. So we got babysitters for our kids. Actually, I think they might have stayed with our collective parents. And then we took our little 3-month old with us to camp in the woods to go to this 2-week permaculture course. And it was amazing. It was mind expanding. So good. Because permaculture is not just for gardening, it is for your entire life. Without replacing Jesus. Like some people do, but it doesn't have to. Definitely doesn't have to. It's really just all about like um really intentionally looking at the inputs and the outputs of your system, your whole life system, your whole garden system, your family system, and then looking at nature, looking at the patterns in nature and modeling after those patterns and seeing how things naturally work together and making choices that let those kind of synergies happen naturally in your garden, in your family, in your life, etc. And our teacher happened to have studied a lot of herbalism from Dr. Christopher's books and lectures. And it was the first time I'd ever heard anyone talk about herbs in a way that was very practical and very um, intuitive is kind of a loaded word. Everyone has a different meaning for that, but it just made sense and it felt good at the same time. And there was no witchcraft involved, which is very important to me. Um, and so we started asking him questions. And meanwhile, all of the food at that training for 2 weeks straight, we cold turkey were eating no meat, no dairy. It was a completely whole food, plant-based diet. And I thought it was just whole food that they were serving. And I was like, oh yeah, we eat whole foods. Like that's what we do. But this was whole food, plant-based. And I was like, whoa, I'm gonna die. Like I thought I was gonna die.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna get enough protein. And I was so sick, you guys. I was running from my tent in the middle of the night to get to the building with the bathrooms because I was not doing well. And so I now know like how dramatic that transition can be, especially if you already have chronic bowel problems like I had. And now I know so many herbal helps to get through that transition. So I wish I had had me now tell me then what I could have done to make that better. And there were a few things that our teacher recommended as well, but also I was reticent to share the more disgusting details with him to seek more advice. So I probably could have gotten more help than I got. But I was having more migraines than ever. I was getting like heat exhaustion because we were building a straw bale structure at the same time as part of that training. And it was just really bad. And so we asked our teacher before we left, like, can you do a consult for me? Like, I'm always up to talking to experts. Like, I want to know, I need to get better. Um, because even though the Weston Price diet and even though the other things had helped me to that point, I still carried a lunchbox with me of all of my supplements. Because of course, at this point, a chiropractor had gotten me on all the standard process supplements that you have to take a million of until you die. And it was like, it was ridiculous. And I was getting worse and worse and worse instead of better. So I got better and then, oh, we're starting to have a drop off. Um, and so he's like, well, yeah, we can talk about some herbal things that would help you, but really we should just talk about your diet. And I was like, no, I don't want to talk about my diet because I like my diet and I have not liked this diet because I feel awful. So I do not want you to tell me that this is the diet I should be taking from now on. And he's like, well, let's open our scriptures. And I was like, dang it, I don't want God to tell me to do that diet either. I don't. Anyway, but so the next day, we had some dedicated hours, 8 hours actually, talking, like looking through the scriptures together. What do the scriptures say about food, and other things, sort of in the healthy living and other just truths of the world? It was fascinating discussion. And by the end of it, I wasn't fully convinced because I still just really didn't want to do it. But I was willing to believe that God had put me in that place at that time so that I could talk to this person and at least get a different perspective and something that I could just give a try. And so we decided to just try out the principle and see what the blessings would be. And those detox symptoms did, we passed them, we got through them, and we, ate through what was in our fridge, and then we basically didn't buy dairy or meat anymore. We're just like, let's just try. Do you want to say anything else about that?
It's all a haze. I don't
It's
remember.
please.
Uh, I mean, my experience was not nearly what yours was. I basically got to the end of the 2 week workshop, having gone cold turkey on a plant-based whole food diet. I didn't feel any worse for the wear. Like, I didn't necessarily feel amazingly better, but I didn't feel like physically incapable or anything. I didn't feel any worse. And so for me, it was like, well, okay.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second because I do remember that both of us noticed by halfway through the second week that neither of us was craving the things we usually crave, the sugar, the cheese,
yeah,
and stuff. We weren't craving it anymore. I was
that's
like,
true.
oh, that's actually this could be really nice to not have cravings ruling my mind anymore. That would be great.
Yeah. But beyond that, like, it was more just like, okay, Sarah feels strongly about doing this in terms of it helping her health. I don't feel any worse for the wear. Yeah, let's do it.
That's
And we
right.
jumped into it.
Yeah. So that was 6 years ago, and we are still doing it. Nothing is a silver bullet because ultimately it comes back to your relationship with God, with Jesus Christ, and what um, what past traumas, what false beliefs, like there's so many things, identities that you've taken on need to be worked through so that that physical symptom no longer needs to manifest. I really believe that at the core, like that's how that works. But we are able to use the herbs also to um, be responsible for the gift that is our amazing bodies. So we use the herbs for nutrition and we use the herbs to support us when there are other needs that arise. And we really try hard. We're not perfect, and I'm not telling anyone has to be perfect. There is that's what grace is for, right? But we really try hard to like if we are using herbs for an injury, I'll say that again because the door closed, for an injury or a moderate illness. We really like don't have severe illnesses anymore, but we can have, mild to moderate illnesses. Um, that we try to always pray first off that we have selected the right herbs for it or the right other, hydrotherapy and sunlight and things, but also that we pray that God will take that as the offering of our effort and amplify it and help our bodies take it in and let the body heal itself with those inputs. So now I'm excited because I've had a discussion with a real herbalist who isn't like a wizard. He's like an actual Christian, and he was just like, you don't have to be afraid of these herbs. Like, go like, look, here's what you use this one for. Pick it up, smell it, touch it, and it was just like, oh, I don't have to be afraid of these because I super believed from when I was a kid up until then that herbs didn't work because they just weren't strong enough. And I also believed that herbs were going to kill you. So it's like, wait, they're too weak to do anything, but they're so strong, you're going to die. That sounds like dogma, right? Like that's not truth. Um, so I really had to get past that, but I was so excited. So I was like, oh, okay, like there was a Christian herbalist. He was actually a naturopathic doctor. And he eventually like he became this renowned herbalist in Utah. Um, they put him in jail a lot for actually healing people because it was like illegal to do that. But this is a long story. You can read all about it in his books. They're fascinating, and we do sell them on our website, herbalembrace.com. And we started listening to his lectures. That is the very first thing that I ever read or listened to from Dr. Christopher was the CD set of his lectures, and it is so good because you just get to drive and listen or sit and listen, crochet and listen, do the dishes and listen. Like you just get to listen to this sweet old grandpa share these amazing stories about the power of herbs and how simple it is. Like not this complex system that like the Chinese medicine, the Ayurvedic medicine, which I think there is a lot of good in, but it's so confusing. And homeopathy is so confusing. But like it was so simple and practical, his guidance and his whole view of how the body could heal itself. And we just have to give it the right ingredients and the right environment. Just like blew my mind and resonated in my soul. So super loved that. Um, and so I started listening to his lectures. Meanwhile, we start moving out to our farm property in a travel trailer, thinking that we would be in a larger structure in no time. Ha! So we got like the bare minimum size travel trailer. We've learned a lot, you guys. Um, But on the way during that move, I discovered, because we're eating this new diet, and I discovered Ginger's Herb Cafe was one of the only places that we could get food that, was like compliant to what we were trying to do. And lo and behold, there were all these advertisements about Dr. Christopher's school. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's the school. I'm doing it. Mike, can I sign up now? Can I sign up? Please, please, please. And so I got started right away. And it's been such a good journey with that. We've dealt with some pretty bizarre things being out in the wilderness. Um, and we've been able to handle it all with the herbs. I mean, there were two times we went and got x-rays just to find out what was going on. And then we took care of it at home and things healed way better way better than they typically do when there's like surgery involved and other things. Like it's been amazing to feel confident in being able to take care of my family. Um, And that's why I wanted to start, you know,
Sharing.
my YouTube channel and my website, and I have so many class videos that I recorded. I think that's where I'm going to kind of stop on the journey side of things. We'll see you guys next time.
Take care, y'all.